Hello my friends, my name is Rachel and welcome to my YouTube channel. This is my first video and I am both nervous but also really excited to be sharing it with you guys. Seeing as October is here and cozy season is well underway, I am currently cuddled up in bed in a cozy thrifted sweater. It's rainy and cloudy and windy outside. I have a candle lit next to me called Cashmere Blanket, which is like the coziest autumn candle I could think to light. I have a pumpkin spice latte, homemade, right beside me. It is iced though because it's still like 90 degrees where I live, but that means that autumn is here regardless. In my heart and in my soul, it's fall time, which means that we are going to be kickstarting this channel off with a small town inspired autumn themed island that I have named Pottsfield. This first video is the entrance to the island, and I am just so proud of the way that the speed build came out. Like, it is so breathtaking. I don't know how I created it. It could not have been from me, if I'm being honest. Like, there is no way that I built something like this. Something must have possessed my body. Like, the build feels like a fever dream because it is just gorgeous. So do stick around to the end to see the beauty shots because she is an icon, she is a legend, and she is the moment. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the speed build. To start things off, I'm just laying down a couple of path tiles to kind of get a feel for the shape and the size of the space that I want to work with for the entrance. I definitely didn't want the entrance to be too big because I have so many builds in mind for this island, and in all the other versions of entrances that I had mocked up, they were all so big and so flat, and I don't know, I didn't feel any of them. So I kind of just threw everything out the window, told myself to just let loose and build whatever I wanted, and that is how this entrance came together. I'm just going through and placing down some pathing for this beautiful cobblestone path that I found online, which I will make sure to feature in the description box down below, along with all the other codes that you will see in this video. And I just love this pathway. I think that it is gorgeous and it fits perfectly for the aesthetic that I want to pull together for Pottsfield, which is definitely a bit more vintage. Technically, Pottsfield is a city core island, but I use that term very loosely because I would consider Pottsfield to be more small town themed. Looking back to like early Americana and older towns that you would find in the Northeast in states like Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Pennsylvania, where you have older towns that have cobblestone streets, brick storefronts, old sidewalks, a lot of history, old trees, like just very lived in, very natural, the type of place that has probably grown organically over time. So I wanted to definitely pull in a lot of organic elements for Pottsfield as well. Back to the build really quick though, every single time I was mocking up this entrance, I always gravitated towards this feature being included on these first couple tiles of the entrance, and so I knew no matter what I had to include that in this version as well. And it's a build that creates a fake fence using decorative pillars layered with the fence object, and I just think that they look so good. I like a lot of the different fencing options that we have in game, but I feel like this one just feels so grand, so big, and the perfect way to usher somebody in to a vintage themed island. I decided to do a bit more layering with this one though and include the hedge to cover up any seams, as well as tucking the fence behind the decorative pillars instead of next to them to kind of mitigate any extra gaps that you can see between furniture. I also decided I wanted to include some Turkey Day stands as a little bit of like some welcome statues, I guess. I don't really know how to explain it, but I just thought it looked good with the little hyacinth lamps on top. But onto this waterscaping really quick. I decided that I wanted to add a little bit of a river. This was kind of a last minute decision for me when I was going through and just playing around with this entrance. I was having such a hard time finding an entrance layout that I liked, and so I kind of just like threw all caution to the wind, told myself to go crazy, and next thing I know, I'm pulling out the waterscaping tool and doing this, which I'm so glad that I did because I feel like this area has so much more dimension and character now. Because beforehand it was just a pathway that leads to another pathway, and now there's cliffs and there's bridges and there's waterfalls, and it just feels like the city has kind of conformed itself to the natural landscape instead of destroying the natural landscape and kind of bulldozing over it. It's a town that has grown along with the nature that surrounds it, which I think is just so pretty. And I also just love waterfalls. They're my favorite feature of terraforming in the game. I think they're just such a great way to make an area feel so magical. I'm definitely a waterscaping stan, and I will make sure that no matter what my island theme is, I can add water of some kind, because I just think it is so important for having a dimensional island. But I went over to Tom Nook and I grabbed a bridge kit from him, and I was torn between the Zen bridge and the brick one, but I just felt like the Zen bridge fit a bit better with the local landscape because the shape is not only gorgeous, it's also the color. I feel like the color kind of fits in a bit better and doesn't like detract too much from the natural landscape surrounding it. And I don't know, I love the curved shape of it. I wanted to add some dimension to this area, and I feel like the Zen bridge was the perfect way to do that. So while I'm just going to be placing down some different pathing and doing a little bit of decoration with some flowers and trees, I want to talk about Pottsfield itself. And if the name Pottsfield sounds familiar for anyone, it's because it is a small pumpkin-themed town that is featured in the Cartoon Network miniseries Over the Garden Wall, which is one of my all-time favorite TV shows. Like, I love Over the Garden Wall so much. I own it on DVD. Every single time fall comes around, I always just want to rewatch it. I actually have a watch party that I have planned for this upcoming week for it, and I'm so excited because I have some friends that have seen it before that are going to be watching it, and then I have some friends that have never seen it that are also going to be watching it. And I'm planning on like getting some apple cider, maybe baking some pumpkin and cinnamon themed treats. So if you guys have any recommendations for your favorite fall time baked goods, do leave them down below because I love baking and I'm looking for different ideas of different treats to include in my little party. But yeah, I just want to like cozy up on the couch and watch this show, and I'm hoping that it will be nice and overcast and rainy outside when it happens. But tangent aside, I love Over the Garden Wall, and I love the aesthetic that the show has. It almost feels very vintage in the sense of like vintage Disney meets vintage Halloween postcards, which is such a specific niche that I have thrown together there. But like, I don't know, I love that feeling. I feel like it's a version of Halloween that often gets looked over. When Halloween comes around, I feel like it's a lot of Tim Burton style, which I absolutely love. I love all the styles I'm about to mention, but I feel like the vintage style is not looked at as often, and instead you get the Tim Burton style, you get the slasher horror style, and I just feel like there's not ever really a market for more vintage gothic type of Halloween, and that's the type of Halloween that I enjoy the most. And I want Pottsfield to have that same feeling, which is why I've gravitated towards those themes, which maybe I'm just thinking about everything a little too deeply, which I mean, story of my life. But I don't know, I wanted to give a bit of flavor, a little bit of spice to this island. I wanted to give it a bit of a backstory. And while I'm still kind of drafting up the backstory, I have decided that Pottsfield is set on the night before Halloween or the evening before Halloween. So that's why for the villagers that I've included on this island, I went for more of an autumn themed lineup. I will post everybody here on the screen so you can see all the dreamies that we've included on the island. Now, I did recently get Nan from a Nook Miles island, and she was not originally going to be featured on the island, but now I'm torn. I'm keeping Vesta no matter what, so let me know down below if I should keep Nan or keep Kiki, because I have both of them and one of them has to go. I can't keep 3 normal villagers even though I love all 3 of them. So let me know, do I keep Kiki or do I keep Nan? But anyway, yeah, I wanted to have the island be set on the night before Halloween, so there's pumpkins everywhere, there's Halloween decorations, but not everyone is in costume. There's still other things going on, like farmers markets and fall festivals, maybe even a fall carnival, possibly, and different things like that, so it feels like it's in the middle of autumn. Like everything is, there's still so much possibility, everyone's still so excited, and I love that feeling. So Halloween rant aside, we can finally focus on the speed build again, and as you can see, we've fleshed out the area with some extra pathing, and now I'm working on this fence along the riverside, which I wanted to add to both polish the area and for a bit of realism, because I feel like in a lot of towns they include like safety rails and fencing to keep people safe near the waterways and canals and things like that. So that's why I decided to add that fence, and it also gave me a chance to include some trees to help bring in that organic feel. I also made the road a 3-tile road, and even though in my perfect world I would love for this to be a realistic 2-way street, it is just not feasible with how much space that would take up. So I decided that these areas with the cars would be more like 1-ways. In the downtown area that I live in, some of the streets are ones that like you can't make certain turns and they're kind of like 1-ways, so I just kind of convinced myself that that's realistic enough, and I decided to go with the 1-way road. I also went through and added the hedges because I love the hedge item. I think they give a lot of great height and a lot of great texture to areas without having to get rid of any pathways, which is nice. And then as you can see here, I also have these street lights with these cute little banner codes, which I love. The only thing I don't love about this item is A, how big it is, and B, that it doesn't match the other street lamps that we have in game. I wish that the actual lamp head post area was the same as the other one, just that they would match a bit better, but I'm gonna try and not let that perfectionism get to me too hard and just leave it how it is because it does look pretty good. But I came back over to this corner of the build because I just could not for the life of me figure out what I wanted to do with this road, and it was bothering me and I wanted to finish it, and I spent so long trying to brainstorm how I was going to finish off this little road because I knew I didn't want the road to go any further than where it was because I am trying to conserve on space somewhat around here, but I just didn't know how to make the road and the car make sense. I knew I needed the road because I need pathways throughout this island, but I want those roads to have some form of significance, and that kind of goes for this car as well, which sounds a little ridiculous and maybe I am overthinking things yet again, but I wanted this car to make sense being here. So what I decided to do was bring this cliff over more, and I pushed a castle gate item up against the cliff as well as 2 decorative pillars to kind of bring in the pillars from the front of the entrance. And my goal here was to build a little bit of a fake tunnel that the car is heading towards. I thought it'd be a cool idea to make it look like the road continues underneath the cliff, and maybe there's like a little overpass thing going on here where the car can go underneath, drive through the cliff, get to wherever else they need to go in the island. So it makes sense as to why there's a car here, and it kind of helps fill out this area and have the cliff be a little bit more significant on the build. I thought it was super cute and a pretty smart use of perspective, which is something that I'm not used to doing. I have never worked with a structured island before. I've only ever worked on cottagecore islands in the past, very rustic, very organic, and I've also only ever 100% completed one island. And I'm a little embarrassed to admit that. I've started maybe 15 islands on Animal Crossing in the 3 years that I've had the game, but I've only ever finished one, and it was my first like real attempt at an island, which was a cottagecore nature themed island named Wormwood, which maybe we'll do a little dream address tour of that one. It's definitely not that great, but it was my first real attempt, so you could see some improvement for sure. But I'm definitely more used to having more natural builds and doing things that are on a bit of a smaller scale. This is also my first time fully building out an island using the 2.0 items. I finished my first ever island before the 2.0 update. I think I finished it in October or November of 2020, and I think these 2.0 items came out in 2021 or sometime last year. I can't entirely remember. Time is just an illusion. So I feel like I don't really have that much experience working with these items, and this is my first time being able to implement them, and I'm glad that I am because I was so excited when the 2.0 update came out, but then when I heard that Nintendo wasn't going to be doing any more updates for Animal Crossing, I kind of got burnt out on the game and I stopped playing for a really long time. Now I have completely glossed over everything that I'm doing here, but I am pretty much just pulling this cliff out and over to the side even more just to help make this part of the road feel feel a bit tighter, more compact, and I find that those are types of spaces that are easier for me to decorate because I don't get overwhelmed with the amount of space that I'm having to deal with. So I wanted to kind of enclose this area in and make it look like a little wooded path, because I definitely want to make sure that this island features a lot of natural landscaping on top of the actual roadways, just because I feel like designing areas with these types of paths can get a bit repetitive when you're dealing with a lot of the same lines going back and forth. Everything's really straight, so being able to bring in natural elements just makes the area feel a bit more lived in my opinion. So I decided to fill in this little area with some trees, kind of layer them with some hedges, some flowers, and I will be tossing some topiaries over here pretty soon, which is one of my favorite items. I love using the topiaries. They're so great because with them being an actual like movable item, you can put them on half tiles. I think they take up a lot of really great space. They're really great for layering because they add different like levels of height, which I think is really cool. But moving on from that, I went over to Mr. Nook yet again, and I spent a pretty penny yet again to get an incline from him. And I feel like the inclines are definitely a lot less cute than the bridges. There's so many cuter bridge options, but the inclines, there's like maybe one or two inclines that I actually like. So I decided to go with these stone ones because I felt like they matched pretty well with the iron and stone fencing. So I thought that it would kind of tie that in a bit better if I went with that versus like the brick option yet again. I do really like the brick option. I just think that it's pretty bright for an island that I'm trying to keep a bit more neutral. But I'm just going through and relayering some items to kind of get a feel for what can fit in this space. I do like using these street lamps. I think that they're so pretty. I love using street lamps in the game. I feel like they bring such great mood lighting when you want to take pictures at night. But I'm just going and putting these fences back. And as you can see, Pom Pom is in the way. Now, I love Pom Pom. She is an icon. She's amazing. She's my bestie. She was my first ever friend on Animal Crossing New Horizons. She was on my first island, and she's the first villager that ever gave me her picture in the game. Like, goodness gracious, yes ma'am. And so I have a special place in my heart for her. I know Pom Pom kind of ranks mid-tier or a little bit lower on the list of villager faves, but I think that she's so cute and she's so underrated, and I need to highlight her on an island. I found her on a Nook Miles island and I couldn't say no, even though she is not going to be staying here. She's not a part of the Dreamy lineup, but she's here just to hang out for a little bit, and she was getting in the way. I will admit, she was in the way and it was irritating me, and there was plenty of times that I was like pushing her out of the way so I could place items, and she was not making it easy to work next to that car. Like, she was obsessed with that car.
Do me a favor, please. Get out of here.
So I moved over to this side, and I definitely messed around with some pathing and some cliffs. This is not the end layout that I go with for that side. Part of me was thinking that I should try and make it symmetrical, but I just felt like that was A, too much symmetry, and B, I wanted more space over here. I have some things in mind for the plaza, and I needed more space than what that layout was giving me, so I kind of messed with it a little bit, decided to put some trees down just to figure out, okay, what do I want the natural landscape to look like, and then I'll figure out the pathing around that. And I honestly really like how this side of the build turns out. It's one of my favorite sides once it actually comes together, and it's so cute. So once I got the pathing figured out, I decided it was time to put some fencing back down and see how I wanted this area to look. I definitely played around a lot with the different amounts of fencing that I put on both sides, but I don't know, I kind of liked it to where the fencing was only covering the tree. But I definitely went through and played around quite a bit with these areas for sure. I decided that I wanted to bring the pathway over even more, and I like the idea of the sidewalks being 2 tiles worth of pathing because I feel like it gives you enough space to include any extra fencing alongside any florals or even just like things like benches, street lamps. I feel like it gives you more room to breathe and makes it to where you have more room to decorate, because I feel like the roads that you're actually putting down are more so the areas that people visiting your island are going to be traversing, and having your sidewalks be little like design moments instead, I feel like is a much easier way to decorate, because I feel like not a lot of decorations belong on a road besides things like bicycles, leaf piles, cars, all that type of stuff. So now I'm just going through and polishing up the pathing off to the side yet again before moving on to this little area over here where I do some super cute pumpkin designing, which, I mean, of course it's an island named Pottsfield. We have to include a lot of pumpkins, so I kind of just have pumpkins strewn all over the place. I also love the vintage design that I used in this poster stand for the little pumpkin guy. I feel like it plays on that like vintage Halloween look. But I went off screen as well and decided to customize some of the pumpkins to change up the colors so that way it wasn't all the same stuff happening over and over again. And this is the final result for this area, which I think is so cute. It turned out way better than I expected. But now I'm just moving on to this little riverside where you can see I capped off the river with some fences and some decorative pillars. I also used some wheat fields to kind of hide the harsh line of the river ending, and decided to change up the area a little bit by adding that little pansy island, which I think also looks super cute. And now I'm just going through and doing what I would consider to be the sprinkles on top of the whole thing, which is going through and adding different design codes to the pre-existing path that I've laid down. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because I like having a mixture of cluttered areas, but I don't like using the entirety of a leaf path. So I have both the bear path and the leaf path for this code downloaded, and I'm kind of blending them in together to make the area look a bit more natural. I'm making sure that any spot that has a large amount of sidewalk open is being covered by these leaf designs, just to make it look like it's a bit more lived in. The leaves have been falling, they've been collecting on the side of the road, all that type of stuff. And I'm also going through and layering these leaf codes beneath some of the items as well. You'll see me pick up a lot of items and scooch them back into place, just so that way they look like they're actually integrating into the natural landscape and they just look a lot more put together. I have a couple different variations of the actual leaf codes because I feel like if I use the same leaf swatch over and over again, it'll be very clear that I'm just throwing these leaf swatches down. But having these two different options for the sidewalk swatches is so nice because I just think it looks so much more natural when there's different variation in the actual design codes that are being used. Now, I'm also making sure that I include some leaves underneath these fences and things, which I think is so important to also make the fencing look a bit more integrated. And it also kind of helps to change up the way that the designs themselves look when you have different types of items layered on top of them. I feel like it helps make the actual design itself look different and not look similar to other ones that you have on the ground around your area. So I noticed with the way that I do my builds and designing areas, it's a lot of picking things up and putting them back down. It's interesting the types of things that you realize when you start making content like this. I didn't know that I built in this sort of way, but I definitely seem to walk back and forth quite a lot and pick up items a lot as well to kind of mess around with the way that things look, which is, I think, just a little bit funny. So now I'm going through and changing up the actual road pathing, and this is kind of where things really start to come together. I just love the way that this looks with the leaf piles layered over them. I think that it makes these leaf piles look so much cooler when there's different leaves that are actually scattering away from the leaf pile, which I think also integrates them better into the natural landscape. And these leaf piles are, I know I've been saying this about so many different items, but these are my favorite item. Like, I just love Animal Crossing's ability to have items that you can interact with, and I love how when you walk through the leaf piles, there's leaves that actually become scattered. I remember when I played, I believe, City Folk for the first time on the Wii, I found the wheat field item for the first time, and I put it in my house, and then I bought like 6 more because I loved the way that you could actually walk through the wheat field and have it like shake and make noise, and it was so cool because I didn't ever think that was something that would be possible. So I definitely am glad that they brought the wheat field back to New Horizons, but I just feel like the wheat field, the leaf piles, all those types of items that you can actually walk through and kind of interact with are so cool. So now that I have all the edges of the pathing done, I decided I wanted to sprinkle in these really cute little paper designs that look like maybe someone I don't want to say littered, but maybe there's flyers that have fallen on the ground, or maybe there's newspapers that have been blown away by the wind. I love those little design codes that people feature in their road designs where there's little pieces of trash or little cracks in the road that just give everything so much more character. Now, I decided that some spots were too small to include leaf piles, so what I did was include these little leaf campfires and turn the fire out so that way there was more piles going on and they were a little bit different. But enough about the leaf piles. We are now moving on to the final little bit of the speed build. I decided I wanted to go through and make this a tree-lined path heading to resident services because I just think that that is so pretty. And I wanted to have these be the large young hardwood versions of the trees, but I decided that I wanted to add the Plain Lights party arch going in between them, and having the trees in between to help keep them stunted was definitely taking up more space than I wanted to give. So I just decided that these would be full-grown trees. So even though you're seeing them now as young hardwoods, in the final results you'll see them as fully grown trees, but I just think it looks so pretty, especially at nighttime. And now I'm going through and kind of just giving some more finishing touches to this area. I added the castle wall over here to kind of give the illusion of maybe some fake buildings lining the streets, which I just love. I think it looks so much more put together when you use these items in a city build. And last but not least, I'm just adding some finishing touches. I decided that I wanted to add a little garden bench over here, but it's definitely not usable. It is completely blocked in, but I just think it looks nice, and that's all that matters sometimes. And yeah, I'm just going through and adding these finishing touches, a couple of leaf piles here and there, just to really make things look more natural and cohesive. And I honestly could not be happier with this build. Like, it looks amazing. I did not know that I was even capable of doing something like this, and I am so proud of myself and so proud of this build. So I really hope that you guys like it too, and I can't wait to show you guys the beauty shots, so let's go take a look. So that is everything for the entrance to Pottsfield, and I honestly could not be happier with it. If you guys have any comments or suggestions about the entrance, do feel free to leave them down below because there is always room for improvement, and I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on how everything turned out. But nonetheless, we have officially come up on the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and if you've gotten this far, do leave some comments down below if you have any ideas or suggestions for the island, as well as any other comments that you would like to share. I would love to hear them. But do please remember to like the video, to subscribe to my channel, as well as turning on the notification bell so that you can get notified of all my upcoming uploads. Just to give a little rundown of my schedule, I will have a new speed build up every single Sunday evening Eastern time, and I'm hoping that I can start implementing maybe bi-weekly island tours every Wednesday. So if you guys have any islands that you would like me to tour, and that includes your own island, do leave them down in the comments below, put the dream address and maybe a little description of the island so that I can come and visit them. I would love to see the stuff that you guys create and get inspired by your own builds, so do feel free to share them. Thanks again, and I will see you guys next week.